"What you want to do to me, cowboy?" the Apache woman asked, but the rancher took action, not words. He lived alone on the edge of the range, where open land met Apache territory. He did not go looking for trouble, and he did not speak more than needed. He believed that work done right spoke for itself. That afternoon felt quiet, but not empty. The wind moved through the grass like a soft warning. The rancher straightened his back and looked toward the hills. He saw movement near the old creek line. At first, he thought it was a stray animal. Then he noticed the shape was human. He rested his hand near his belt, not reaching for anything, just ready. People did not often cross this far unless they had a reason. The figure came closer, walking steady and calm, not hiding, not rushing. When she stepped into the open, he saw she was an Apache woman. Her clothes were worn from travel and dust marked her face, but her posture was strong and sure. She stopped a short distance away. Her eyes studied him as if measuring the ground itself. There was no fear in her stance, only caution. The rancher did not move closer. He knew enough to give space. "My horse ran this way," she said. Her voice was firm, clear, and carried the weight of someone used to being heard. "I followed the tracks to your land." He nodded once. "There was a loose horse near the north fence," he replied. His voice was calm, even, and low. "I tied it near the water trough." She looked past him toward the ranch buildings. Then she looked back at him, her gaze sharp but curious. Silence settled between them. It was not awkward. It was watchful. After a moment she spoke again, her tone different, lighter but testing. "What you want to do to me, cowboy?" she asked. The question hung in the air. It was not playful and it was not an attack. It was a challenge, shaped by years of dealing with men who spoke before they thought. She wanted to see what kind of man stood in front of her. The rancher did not answer with words. He turned slowly and walked toward the trough. He untied the horse and led it back, holding the rope steady. He stopped a few steps from her and handed her the lead. Then he stepped back, giving her space again. "Your horse," he said. He was thirsty. She looked at the rope in her hand, then at the horse, then at him. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. She had expected many things, but not that. "Thank you," she said after a pause. He nodded again. "Water's there if you need it. There's shade by the barn." She studied his face, searching for hidden meaning. She found none. He did not stare. He did not smile. He simply waited. She led the horse to the trough and let it drink. The rancher went back to his fence, picking up his tools. He did not turn his back fully, but he did not hover either. The quiet returned, broken only by the sound of water and the wind. When the horse was done, she approached again. "You're not afraid," she said, not as a question. "I don't see a reason to be," he replied. That answer made her pause. She had heard fear many times in her life, sometimes hidden behind anger or pride. This was neither. It was plain and steady. "I'm called Ayana," she said. He wiped his hands on a cloth. "Ethan," he answered. They stood there, two people from different worlds, sharing the same ground for a moment. The land did not care who they were. It only waited to see what they would do. Yana glanced toward the hills. "My people won't like me crossing here," she said. "I won't cause trouble," Ethan said. "You came for your horse, that's all." She studied him again, then nodded. "That's all." She turned to leave, then stopped. "Most men talk," she said. "They say things, make promises or threats." He met her eyes. "I work," he said simply. That was all he offered, no pride, no excuse. She held his gaze for a long second, then gave a small nod. "I see that." As she walked away, Ethan watched until she reached the edge of the land. Then he went back to his work. Still, something had shifted. The land felt different, as if it had noticed the meeting too. That night the wind picked up. Ethan sat on the porch, cleaning his tools. He thought about the question she had asked, not because it confused him, but because it revealed something deeper. She had not been asking what he wanted. She had been asking who he was. He slept lightly, as he always did. Before dawn, he heard a sound near the barn. He rose quietly and stepped outside. Yana stood there holding a lantern. Her horse had returned restless, favoring one leg. "He stepped wrong," she said. "I don't have what I need to help him." Ethan did not ask why she came back or what others would say. He grabbed his supplies and knelt by the horse. His movements were careful and sure. He cleaned the leg, checked the strain, and wrapped it properly. Ayanna watched closely. "You know animals," she said. "They tell you what's wrong if you listen," he replied. When he finished, he stood and stepped back again. "He should rest. You can stay until morning if you want, there's space." She hesitated. Trust was not given easily, but the horse leaned into the quiet, already calmer. "I'll stay until sunrise," she said. They sat near the fire pit, not too close. The night passed with small sounds and shared silence. No stories were traded, no promises made. When the sky began to lighten, Ayanna stood. "You never answered my question," she said softly. Ethan looked at the land ahead, then back at her. "I already did," he said. She understood then, and for the first time she smiled, not wide, not playful, but real. As she left with her horse at sunrise, Ethan watched again. He did not know what would come next. He only knew that some meetings were not accidents, and some answers were meant to be shown, not spoken. The days after that night passed quietly, but the quiet did not feel empty anymore. Ethan returned to his routine, fixing fences, feeding cattle, checking water lines. Still, his mind remembered the calm way Ayanna had watched him work, and the trust she had shown by staying until sunrise. He did not look for her, and he did not expect her to return. He believed that if paths crossed again, it would be because they were meant to. 3 days later, dust rose near the far edge of the ranch. Ethan was repairing a gate when he saw a familiar horse moving slowly toward him. Ayanna rode carefully, guiding the animal with patience. The horse's leg looked better, but she was not pushing it. She stopped at a respectful distance. "He's healing," she said. "I followed what you showed me." Ethan nodded. "You did right, don't rush him." She dismounted and let the horse rest in the shade. "I didn't come to ask for help this time," she said. "All right," Ethan replied. He waited. "I came to return this," she said, holding out a small leather strap he had used during the wrap, "and to thank you again." He took it and placed it back in his bag. "You're welcome." She watched him for a moment. "You don't ask questions," she said. "I ask when I need to," he answered. That made her smile slightly. She looked around the ranch, noticing how everything had its place. Nothing fancy, nothing wasted, just enough. "May I sit for a bit?" she asked. "There's water and shade," he said, stepping aside. They sat near the fence, the space between them easy and natural. The sun moved slowly and the land stretched wide around them. "My people think your kind only takes," Ayanna said after a while. "Land, words, promises." Ethan considered that. "Some do," he said. "Some don't." She looked at him. "You act like the land belongs to itself." "It does," he said. "I just work it." That answer stayed with her. She had met men who claimed land as power. Ethan treated it as responsibility. As the afternoon passed, they spoke little, but when they did, it mattered. He told her about the storms that came without warning. She told him about the hills that hid water even in dry seasons. They shared knowledge without trying to impress each other. Later, distant voices echoed from the hills. Ayanna stiffened slightly. "My cousin is looking for me," she said. "He worries." "I won't keep you," Ethan said. She nodded, then hesitated. "Some won't like that I come here." "I won't give them a reason," he replied. She mounted her horse. "That matters more than words," she said, then turned and rode away. The next week brought trouble. A fence on the north side was cut. Ethan noticed it early and fixed it before the cattle wandered. He did not accuse anyone, but he knew it was a message. That same evening, Ayanna returned, her expression serious. "There are talks," she said. "People think you're crossing lines." "I stay where I am," Ethan said. "That's not always enough," she replied. He nodded. "I won't move closer, and I won't chase what isn't mine." Her shoulders relaxed slightly. "I told them that," she said. Ethan looked at her. "That may cost you." "It already has," she replied calmly. Silence settled again, heavier this time. He understood now that their meetings were not unnoticed. A few days later, a sudden storm rolled in. Rain fell hard, turning dry ground slick. Ethan worked fast to secure loose boards. In the distance, he saw a rider struggling near the creek. Without hesitation, he mounted his horse and rode out. The water was rising fast. Gianna's horse had slipped, unable to climb the muddy bank. Ethan dismounted and approached slowly, keeping his movements calm. He guided the horse, steadying it while Gianna climbed up safely. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No," she said, "but thank you." He did not linger. Once she was safe, he stepped back, letting her regain control. Others arrived soon after, drawn by the storm. Eyes watched closely. Ethan stood quietly, hands visible, posture open. One man spoke sharply, questioning why Ethan was there. "I saw trouble," Ethan said. "I helped." "That's all." No more was said. The rain washed over them, blurring lines and softening hard edges. After the storm, word spread. Some spoke with suspicion, others with reluctant respect. Ethan continued his work as before. He did not defend himself with stories. He let time speak. Ayanna visited less often, but when she did, it was never hidden. She stood openly at the edge of the ranch, not sneaking, not avoiding eyes. That choice took courage. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she said, "You make things harder by being steady." He smiled faintly. "I don't know another way." She laughed quietly at that, the sound brief but real. "What happens now?" she asked. "We keep doing what's right," he said, "even when it's slow." She looked at the horizon. "That's the hardest kind of work." "Yes," he agreed. When she left that night, Ethan knew the ground beneath them was changing. Not because of words spoken, but because of choices made again and again. Part 2 closed with understanding growing, not loudly, but deeply, as both learned that real respect was built through patience, action, and the courage to stand quietly when it would be easier to speak. The land grew tense as summer moved on. It was not something that could be seen easily, but it could be felt. The air seemed heavier, and even the animals reacted to it. Ethan noticed his cattle staying closer together. Birds lifted suddenly from the ground for no clear reason. Trouble often came quietly before it showed its face. Ayanna did not come for several days. When she finally did, her expression was different. She did not smile when she saw Ethan. She stood still at the fence line, as if choosing her words with care. "There are meetings," she said. "People are talking more openly now." Ethan rested his hands on the fence. "About me?" "About us being seen near each other," she replied. "About land, about respect." "I haven't crossed any line," he said. "I know," she answered quickly. "But not everyone cares about truth. Some care about fear." That word settled between them. Fear had shaped many stories before this one. "I don't want you caught in the middle," Ethan said. "If staying away helps," she shook her head. "Running makes things worse. Silence can look like guilt." He looked at her carefully. "What do you want to do?" "I want things to stay calm," she said. "But calm doesn't mean doing nothing." That night, Ethan did not sleep much. He walked the edges of his land, checking fences again, making sure nothing was loose. Near the creek, he saw fresh marks in the mud. Not animal tracks, human ones. They pointed away from his land, but the message was clear. The next morning, one of his cattle was missing. Ethan followed the tracks slowly. He did not rush or assume. He found the animal near the boundary, unharmed but tied loosely as if meant to be found. It was a warning, not a theft. He led the cattle back without anger, but he knew the situation had shifted. Later that day, Ayanna arrived with 2 others from her people. They stood at a distance, watching Ethan closely. He stayed where he was, tools set down, hands open. One of the men spoke. His tone was sharp but controlled. "You are being watched." "I don't hide," Ethan replied. "Some think you're trying to claim what isn't yours," the man said. Ethan shook his head. "I claim nothing beyond my work." Ayanna stepped forward. "He has shown respect," she said firmly. "Again and again." The man looked at her. "Respect can be a mask." Ethan spoke then, not loudly but clearly. "I don't ask for trust," he said. I earn it or I don't. That's not my choice alone." Silence followed. The group left without another word. That evening, dark clouds gathered fast. A storm stronger than the last rolled in, heavy and sudden. Rain hit hard and wind tore through the trees. Ethan worked quickly to secure the barn doors. In the chaos, he heard a distant shout. He mounted his horse and rode toward the sound, rain stinging his face. Near the old ravine, he saw Ayana's younger brother struggling to guide a frightened animal. The ground beneath them was giving way. Ethan did not shout. He moved in close, steady and careful. He guided the animal first, calming it, then helped the young man find firm ground. The ravine collapsed moments later, sending mud and water down in a roar. They stood there, soaked and shaken, but safe. When others arrived, they saw only the result. Ethan stepped back, letting the young man speak. "He helped," the brother said, without hesitation. Word traveled faster than the storm. The next days were heavy with talk. Some softened, others hardened further. Ayana faced sharp words from her own people, questions about loyalty and choice. "You don't owe him anything," one elder said. "I owe truth," she replied. Ethan heard of this later and felt the weight of it. He knew standing steady was no longer enough. Silence alone could be mistaken. A meeting was called at the shared boundary. People gathered, keeping space but watching closely. Ethan arrived alone. He did not bring tools or weapons, only himself. He spoke plainly. "I live here, I work here. I won't expand my land, I won't cross yours. If I see trouble, I'll help. If you tell me to leave you be, I will." Someone asked, "And her?" Ethan looked at Ayana, then back to the group. "She decides her own path." That answer shifted the ground more than any argument could. Ayana stepped forward. "He never tried to control," she said. "Not once." The meeting ended without clear agreement, but without violence. That mattered. That night Ethan sat alone, listening to the wind settle. He wondered if doing the right thing was always supposed to feel this heavy. Before dawn, Ayana came quietly. She did not sit. She stood beside him, looking out at the land. "They will test you again," she said. "I know," he replied. "And me," she added. He nodded. "I won't make it harder for you." She turned to him. "You already made it harder," she said softly. "By being different." He looked at her. "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "Don't be. Some things are worth the wait." As the sun rose, they stood in silence, knowing the easy days were behind them, but neither stepped away. Both understood now that trust was no longer private. It was being measured by others, tested by events beyond their control. Yet in that quiet moment, before the world pressed in again, they knew one thing for certain. When the past pushed back, they would not answer with anger or fear. They would answer the same way they always had. The days after the meeting did not bring peace. They brought waiting. Waiting was often harder than open trouble. People watched from a distance. Every move Ethan made felt noticed. Every visit Ayana made carried weight. Ethan stayed the same. He rose before sunrise, fed the animals, checked the land, fixed what was broken. He did not change his paths or his habits. He believed that changing now would look like fear, and fear would only feed more doubt. Ayana felt the pressure more sharply. Some in her community avoided her. Others spoke in careful words that still carried judgment. She listened without raising her voice. She did not argue. She answered only when needed. One afternoon, a group of riders appeared near the boundary. Ethan saw them first and waited by the fence. He did not cross toward them. They stopped and watched him for a long moment. Finally, one man spoke. "There is talk that you are trying to build something between the lands," Ethan replied calmly. "I'm trying to keep them separate and safe." "That may not be enough," the man said. Ethan nodded. "Then tell me what is." The man hesitated. He had expected resistance, not openness. "Actions," he said at last, "not words." Ethan looked around at his ranch. "That's all I've ever used." The riders left without another challenge, but the tension remained. Later that week, a fire broke out in the dry grass near the hills. Wind pushed it fast, and smoke rose thick into the sky. People from both sides rushed toward it, fear spreading quicker than the flames. Ethan saw the danger immediately. If the fire crossed the ravine, it would race toward homes and grazing land. He did not wait for permission. He gathered tools, mounted his horse, and rode straight toward the edge of the fire. Gianna was already there, organizing others. When she saw Ethan, her first reaction was worry, but she did not send him away. There was no time. They worked side by side, cutting lines in the dirt, guiding people to safer ground, moving animals away from danger. Ethan took the hardest ground where heat and smoke were strongest. He did not shout orders. He simply worked and others followed. At one point, the wind shifted suddenly. Flames jumped closer than expected. Gianna stumbled while helping an elder move. Ethan saw it and reached her in seconds, steadying her and guiding both to safety. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No," she said, breathing hard, "but thank you." They did not stop. They kept working until the fire slowed and finally broke apart, leaving blackened ground behind but no lives lost. When it was over, people stood quietly, exhausted. Eyes turned toward Ethan. He was covered in ash and sweat, breathing heavy but still standing. No one spoke against him that night. In the days that followed, the tone changed. Not fully, not everywhere, but enough to feel. People greeted him with nods instead of silence. Some offered water or simple thanks. Ethan accepted politely and moved on. Gianna noticed too. "You didn't have to take the worst part," she said one evening. "I did," Ethan replied. "It was closest." She studied him. "You always stand where it costs you the most." He shrugged slightly. "That's where the work is." Still, the pressure did not disappear. Some accused Ayana of leading him into the fire on purpose. Others said Ethan was trying to prove something. One night, Ayana came to the ranch later than usual. Her face was tired, her steps slow. "They want me to stop coming here," she said quietly. Ethan felt a tightness in his chest but kept his voice steady. "What do you want?" "I want honesty," she said, "even if it hurts." He nodded. "Then here it is. If my presence brings trouble to you, I will step back. Not because I'm afraid, but because I won't use you as proof of anything." She looked at him, eyes searching. "And if I don't want you to?" "Then I'll stand where I am," he said, "but I won't pull you with me." She sat down heavily on a rock. "Do you know how rare that is?" she asked. "I know how necessary it is," he replied. Silence stretched between them, thick but honest. Days later, another meeting was called, this time with more people. Ethan was asked to attend. He arrived early and stood alone near the edge, hands at his sides. Voices rose as the discussion grew tense. Some demanded rules, others demanded distance. Finally, someone asked Ethan directly what he wanted. Ethan spoke clearly. "I want peace. I want to work my land. I want respect to go both ways. I won't expand. I won't interfere, but I won't turn away from someone in danger." A voice asked, "Even if it costs you?" "Yes," Ethan answered without hesitation. Gianna stood then. "He already paid," she said, "with his body in the fire. With his silence when blamed, with his choices." The meeting ended slowly, without cheers or anger, but something important had happened. Lines had been drawn, not in dirt, but in understanding. That night, Ethan sat alone again, the land quiet around him. He felt tired in a deep way, but also certain. Whatever came next, he would not regret standing where he had. Iana joined him quietly. "They may never fully accept this," she said. "I don't need everyone," Ethan replied. "Just truth." She smiled faintly. "You found it the hardest way." As the stars came out, the weight between them felt lighter, not gone, but shared. They both knew the final answer was still ahead. But now, when they stood together, it was not in secret, not in defiance, but in the open. And that made all the difference. The season began to change. The heat softened and the nights grew cooler. The land, which had held so much tension, finally seemed to breathe again. Grass slowly returned where the fire had passed, small green signs pushing through dark soil. Life was moving forward, quiet but steady. Ethan noticed the change first in the animals. The cattle spread out again, calm and unafraid. Birds returned to the trees near the creek. Even the wind felt lighter, as if it no longer carried warnings. People still watched him, but the looks were different now. They were not sharp or searching, they were thoughtful. Yana came more often again, always openly, never hiding. No one stopped her. Some nodded, some looked away, but no one challenged her. One evening she arrived just before sunset. Ethan was repairing a low fence near the barn. She watched him work for a while before speaking. "You could have left," she said. "Many would have." "I thought about it," Ethan replied honestly. "But leaving wouldn't have made things right. It would only have made things unfinished." She stepped closer, standing beside him, looking out over the land. "My people see you differently now," she said. "Not all the same way, but enough." "That's more than I expected," he said. She smiled softly. "That's because you didn't expect anything." They walked slowly toward the porch and sat down as the sun dipped low. The sky turned orange and purple, wide and open. "Do you ever regret staying?" she asked. Ethan thought for a moment. "No," he said. "It cost me things, sleep, comfort, safety sometimes, but I didn't lose myself." She nodded. "That matters." The next day, a young boy from Ayana's community came riding up to the ranch. He looked nervous but determined. Ethan stepped forward calmly. "My grandmother sent me," the boy said. "She hurt her leg. We need help moving her closer to water." Ethan did not hesitate. He gathered supplies and followed the boy back. He worked carefully, listening, moving slow so no one felt rushed or ignored. When it was done, the grandmother placed her hand over his and nodded once. That single gesture spread faster than any story. Over the next weeks, small things happened. Someone brought extra grain during a dry stretch. Another helped fix a broken gate near the boundary. Ethan accepted help without pride and gave it without keeping score. Gianna noticed everything. One night she sat with him near the fire pit again. "You've built something," she said. "I didn't build it," Ethan replied. "I just didn't tear it down." She looked at him, eyes thoughtful. "That answer fits you." The real test came quietly, without warning. A trader from far away tried to push into the shared land, claiming rights he did not have. His words were loud, his tone sharp. He tried to divide people, to turn old fears into quick gains. Meetings grew tense again. Voices rose. Ethan stayed silent until he was asked to speak. When he did, he spoke plainly. "This land doesn't need another fight," he said. "It needs care. Anyone who comes here must respect that or leave." The trader laughed and tried to mock him, but it did not work. Too many people had seen Ethan work. Too many had been helped by his quiet actions. The trader left soon after with nothing gained. That moment sealed what words never could. Later that night, Yana stood with Ethan at the edge of the land where their paths had first crossed. "Do you remember my question?" she asked. He nodded. "I remember." "I asked what you wanted to do," she said. "I was testing you. I wanted to see if you would speak first." "And I didn't," he replied. She smiled, warmer now. "No, you answered every day instead." They stood in silence, comfortable and real. "I want to choose my path," she said softly. "Not because of pressure, not because of fear, but because it feels right." Ethan looked at her. "Whatever you choose, it's yours." She met his eyes. "I choose to walk forward with you nearby, not owned, not hidden." He nodded, emotion clear but controlled. "That's enough for me." As time passed, the story of the rancher and the Apache woman became simple when told by others. No drama, no sharp edges, just two people who stood their ground without trying to take more than they needed. Children played near the boundary again. Elders spoke without bitterness. The land healed, and so did the space between people. One evening, long after the sun had set, Ayana sat beside Ethan and said quietly, "You never tried to shape me." He smiled faintly. "I wouldn't know how. That's why it worked," she said. Ethan looked out at the land he had worked for years. It looked the same, yet different, fuller, shared without being taken. He understood something then. Strength was not about control or noise. It was about patience. about showing up every day and doing what was right, even when no one was watching. Xiana rested her hand on the wooden rail beside his, not holding, just present. The question she had once asked no longer needed an answer, because the answer had already been lived.